Hello and welcome to Brand Pitch. Today I'm joined by Josh from Hockey Focus. If you don't know Hockey Focus, it's a social media account that gets out information about the English Hockey League. It started off doing graphics for results and fixtures coming up and has gone on to do bigger and better things from there. I usually put this at the end, but because it's quite a long one, I thought I'd put it at the start. If you like the content that I'm creating for Boss F Hockey, including reviews and giveaways, then you can support me and help me make more of this content by going to my Patreon or my website and joining the Boss F Hockey Club. It starts from just £1 a month and it helps me run Boss F Hockey and do interesting things like the reviews, like running giveaways, and like interviews like this. If you don't want to support me in that way, a simple subscribe on YouTube would go a long way. So, welcome to the latest episode of Brand Pitch. Today I'm joined by Josh from Hockey Focus. So, Josh, can you tell us a little bit about how Hockey Focus got started?
Yeah, so Hockey Focus was a kind of personal project that I started with Ben. He's now currently the head coach for East Grinstead Women's Twos. So I've kind of taken it over this year. Hockey Focus essentially, though, was started to kind of champion British field hockey. Is the main one we're looking to kind of improve the perception of field hockey on social media is our main aim currently, and we just want to deliver graphics, reels, any kind of short, medium format, and also statics of hockey, just to present to the world how great the sport actually is.
Yeah, and you've been doing a fantastic job. Often you get the information out before kind of the national governing body and presented in a much more, let's say, readable way. So what background do you have coming into starting Hockey Focus?
Yeah, so in terms of my kind of background, I didn't really do graphics at all. I loved like looking at sport posters everywhere. If you look down the streets, you see all of those kind of billboards. I'd always look at that and go, "Oh, that's really cool. I'd love to do that one day." And then so I went to university to start doing product design, and then COVID hit, so moved back home. That was during my second year, and then just because I had so much time, I thought I would learn how to use Photoshop, just to try and kind of learn how to do that myself, essentially. So I'm a self-taught graphic designer in a way. And then when I was looking for a placement, I didn't even realise that sport design genuinely was an actual job. So I was like, I've got to apply for it. So then, yeah, I managed to get in with a little company called Sport and Media. So I was managing to learn doing social media for cricket, but also loads of other sports. It was like running, it was for marathons, all kind of little pages across social media. So I was starting to pick up the experience there. And then when I was having a chat with Ben, we were just like, we should start doing all these cool bits which you've seen on social media, like doing a mic up with someone. And also, I think looking at some of the graphics were put out by national governing bodies. We looked at him and we said, you know what, we genuinely think we could do a good job and make people kind of love hockey again, essentially. And that is genuinely where it just kind of started.
Yeah, and from that you've branched off, so not just putting out kind of the results and the matches that are upcoming. You've also done a couple of interviews and you've done a few interesting challenges. I remember one of Ashley Jackson drag flicking at Ben, I think, stood on the post.
That was me, that one. That was one of the scariest encounters of my life. Ashley Jackson, for the first 4 or 5 flicks, was probably going about, I reckon, about 40%, and it was still beating me. And then the last one, I think he was like, "Yeah, I'm going to put it right at his chest, and I'm going to see what happens." And I just put the stick out and just hoped that I would save it, and I somehow managed to get that one.
So with that near-death experience in mind, are you wanting to do more sort of stuff like that going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see us as a page kind of going forwards for just putting out fixtures and score lines. That should be the responsibility of the national governing body. We obviously have been putting out to try and push people to do better with it. And to be fair to them, this season definitely has been a lot better for sure. And so that's where I'm kind of seeing it. Well, we feel like we've kind of done our job there. So but then I want to kind of get into doing more, I'll call it more original content in terms of what people would actually want to go onto Instagram for, not just to look at fixtures and scorelines. You want to see original content, for example, like the drag flick challenge, the drag flick challenge, and kind of bits like that. We want to kind of do more reels like that, maybe a few graphics. But I feel like Instagram is moving heavily and has been for the last few years into real and kind of video format. So we need to keep up with that, but also kind of push ahead as well and just see what content we can create that no one else has really done.
And with that, what I don't want to kind of say what content are you going to make, but what content have you seen elsewhere that you think could be really useful coming into hockey? So you talked about the mic'd up for an example.
Yeah, there's so many players out there within not just other sports, but if I go for within hockey, for example, there's people I would love to mic up. For example, Will Cownan. I think he would be sensational to mic up, and I've been told by people as well that would be brilliant. I think it would be quite comedic, but also it's just something for people to kind of feel like they're inside the actual team and they can see what is going on as well. And I feel like people need to see that because you see it across other sports. You see it in football. You get, for example, Sky Sports. I'm pretty sure it is now who do. They show that all the decisions behind the VAR, and you can hear all of the mic kind of conversations with all the refs. But that's more post game. We would love to obviously do that. We just don't have the facilities for that within hockey at the moment. But that's where we need to play to our strengths of what we do have, and we have great contacts with players and umpires who are at national, international level, and it's actually fairly easy to get them involved because people will want to be involved. So, like, there's just so much content we can do with that.
And with that, what content would you like to see more of around hockey? I mean, especially within the British leagues that you've kind of specialised in so far.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So in terms of, I think what I want to do is be promoting certain events a lot better, essentially. So like the Super Sixes is one of my favourite events of the year. I think indoor hockey it's a 1 day event which is got everything a fan could really want. You've got the drink, you're literally meters away from the action, and it's just non-stop and it's fantastic. But I don't think we promote that enough. We need to be putting out video content that promotes the event, like you would see someone promoting the Champions League final or Cheltenham kind of horse racing. We want to be promoting it to that kind of level. So we want to be trying to get that professional level of content out there. That there's a struggle with money with kind of to do that, but with kind of getting more and more contacts within the sport, but also outside, looking at kind of videographers, photographers, when we feel like we're starting to build up quite a good brand, but also connections with these photographers, we feel like we can start getting content like this. And we've actually got something coming out soon for promoting finals weekend this year. We've managed to get some of the top players who will hopefully be there involved, so look out for that.
Yeah, that sounds really good. I'm a big fan of the Super Sixes. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head in that it's a great day out. You get a full day of indoor hockey, and there's gaps in between the games where you can, chat with your friends and stuff like that. And I don't think there's enough promotion around it, as you said. So what sort of thing would you, looking at this past year's Super Sixes, what sort of promotion would you have liked to have seen more done?
I feel like we need to be using as I kind of just said now, was using professional videography. And actually, you know what? So like the last one that's just been there was it was inside a velodrome, and you had the cycle track around the outside. Some people slated it. I think that's absolutely brilliant. You've got halftime entertainment, bikes going around. Let's promote that in a way where you're going to watch two sports in one. I think that's absolutely brilliant way to do it. And I just don't think they really promoted it enough. Like what I saw across was the same content. Didn't really see much video, to be honest. And we're not getting any kind of out of home content, kind of anything on billboards. So let's try and like not just have a social media presence. Let's try and push it out onto the streets. That's where other people are going to see it as well. You know, like yes, it was in Derby, which is halfway up the country, or down the country for some people. But you got to make it an event that people would want to travel for. So like if people were going to go follow their football team from the south all the way up to the north, you would do that because of the content that you're seeing put out, but also because you know that it's going to be a great day out of sport and you know how good it's going to be. So it's our job to put that out there and put the content showing on how good like the skill set is of the players and the goals as well. And that's our responsibility.
And again, you've already touched on that you've got something coming out around the finals weekend. So I don't want to kind of tread on your toes too much because obviously that's not out yet. But going into that finals weekend, what sort of push would you like to see away from your own content, talking about in the real world locally to the event? What sort of promotion would you like to see given, let's say, a medium budget? Let's not push the boat out too much.
Yeah, I think that's a bit more realistic. It'll probably be like low to medium budget. I feel like it should be national governing body getting involved with the clubs who are going to be there, involved with the players, and you should be using those top level players and even like international level players who are going to be playing at that weekend. Use them, you know, because it's names that people know or should know. We should be using them for posters, for example. But if it's going to be at Sugden Road at Surbiton, how would you drive people to get there? And people are like, oh, it's in London. Then we need to help kind of make that possible. Okay, so we've obviously hopefully would have free parking in there, but then also for travel for train. Like you've got to have some incentive behind it. So we'd want to see kind of national governing body offering like good deal on tickets, which to be fair they do normally do for this weekend, which is definitely possible. But and actually last year as well they had a post event, they had a DJ, they had the bar, and they had this kind of pop-up tent with loads of benches in, and the atmosphere looked amazing. I just couldn't stay for the night, which I was actually quite gutted about. And I feel like that is a great incentive, that you're going to watch the hockey, but then actually post event you got the players coming out and drinking within within the people as well, which I think is brilliant. And you wouldn't see that across any other sport at that level. So we just need to be promoting all of this.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, I can't think of any sport other than hockey where you have that kind of interaction with the top stars. I know in the UK, you can just kind of rock up to any Premier League game and probably have a 10-minute chat with players on the way up. They have a huge club culture overseas where people will spend their whole day at the club and then they'll all go up to the bar for a drink afterwards. And the first teams will come in there after their game. So around that kind of access that we are given to these players, how would you push to get trying to word this in a way that doesn't tell you what I think the answer you're going to give is awkward. How would you push that kind of level of access as a tool for promotion of the finals day?
Yeah, I suppose yes, it's another good question because there's so many ways you can do it. There's no right or wrong answer to it. It just depends what kind of perspective you take on it. So, for example, I would want to be including them in pre-tournament content. So we're doing headshots or video content within like a studio space or on a pitch. Like, it depends on the art direction which you're going for, kind of to push it. But we want to be using these guys and actually having them look at the camera for everything, because then people will look at them, and it's using that eye contact to have the people kind of connect, not just with the content. You could then use that for posters, like I've said. But I feel like that is the main way I would be using them across social media. But then if I had the budget, create these huge posters, try and get it on trains as well. Just get some like little kind of like billboards on trains, like above the seats, which is what you get sometimes. I feel like you just need to have that presence everywhere. Like, get little stickers across London or towns, wherever. Like, you need to have like a brand presence everywhere, essentially, just to be seen.
Yeah, I like you say. I think getting the event out there locally might pull in. You know, it might be someone who is a cricket fan who fancies coming along just for the day out, if nothing else. I mean, how many hundreds of people go to cricket that don't play? So moving on a little bit from the promotion, what would you like to see more from England Hockey as the national governing body around content for the Premier Leagues?
I think the main thing, and I get a few messages from people asking where can I find highlights, and when you see the highlights of games at top level, they've got a lot better in recent years. Don't get me wrong, East Grinstead have been putting in a shift, Beeston as well. Southgate have been putting on a good show as well, and they've only just come up to the Premier League, which is great to see. But I feel like national governing body, sorry, should be helping with this. It feels like what it feels like is that they've just said to the clubs, you need to get it and just give it to us. But then if you look at Premier League football, it's not up to the clubs to film their own games, obviously. I know it's on a very different level of like broadcast, but surely the national governing body should be helping out the clubs. Not providing equipment as such, but kind of giving guidelines of, you need to be filming like this. It needs to be consistent. It needs to be a good enough camera to capture the content, not just one of those VO cameras, which is great that follows the play, but you can't see anything that's going on. Really, like you can barely see the ball at the other end of the pitch. Like, you should be filming at the halfway line. That is a way that like any kind of format of kind of pitch game like that should be filmed at for broadcast. So I feel like highlights for me is the big one. I want to see the national governing body do better next year, and I think that's what a lot of people want as well, because not everyone can make it to go watch the games, and they want to watch the hockey still. Like, everyone is interested. There's just no resources for them to kind of follow it, essentially.
So on that, you touched on a broadcasting standards guideline. So if you were asked to create that, what would you say is the minimum that clubs would need to provide to give better quality highlights?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like genuinely one of my favorite ones to watch is what Beeston do. I think they do it really well, where you've got the game being filmed at the right level. It's like, I genuinely can't tell you how high it is above the pitch. I'm going to guess it's like 10, 20 meters above the pitch kind of height, and they've got kind of like scaffolding kind of structure going, which is perfect. And you need to have like a good enough camera with a good enough zoom, good enough quality filming as well. So like I would give like the specifications, like minimum specifications you need for that camera of the lens, but also just following the play as well. And then also having, I'd be tempted to ask for a few more camera angles as well, some more close-ups at like penalty corners. Like, for example, FIH Pro League, what they do really well, I think it was the Pro League or it was the World Cup, I can't actually remember, but they've got the spider cam above the pitch, and it goes like behind the drag flicker. And I think that's a great camera angle that, like, I'm not saying clubs should do that, because there's no way that is possible or any way kind of feasible, but it's just looking for camera angles for people to follow that kind of close-up action, which they need to see. They don't need to see the rest of the pitch at that point, essentially.
So would you say a high quality elevated camera on the halfway and maybe a fixed camera behind each goal as a minimum?
I'll go one for behind the goal. I definitely would go for one behind the goal, but I'd want another one that's not kind of got the net in view as well. I'd want one that's actually focused on the drag flicker, so it might not follow them through to the actual. It won't follow the ball through to the actual goal. It will follow the flicker to get their celebration as well, which is what BT do quite well when they covered like the Pro League. So I think it's just kind of picking bits from that kind of level, but then bringing it back down to what is feasible at this Premier League level currently.
And around that, so obviously they are putting out highlight packages. It has improved, as you say, drastically over the past couple of years. We're not stuck with what it used to be, which was just the goals, which was not fantastic. So with that kind of presentation, do you think that it should be a shorter form, so like 10 minutes for the men's, 10 minutes for the women's as a maximum, or would you like to see kind of a longer program with a bit more analysis chipped in as well?
I just had that in my mind, and I was going to try and bring it up in this conversation. So this is actually perfect wording of the question for me here. So I feel like you need both. I feel like you need a short format for social media for people to go, I just want to see this. But I feel like a lot of people would watch kind of like a match of the day format with like a panel, and like you choose like kind of the not commentators, what are they called? It's just gone out straight my head.
Pundits.
Pundits. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you get your pundits. You got like one main person who's there every week who can lead the conversation confidently every single time, and then you're going to have two other ones who can change every single week. And you got who will be like players who used to play at the top level. So let's say you get Glenn Kirkman, for example, from East Grinstead. He would have a great knowledge of the game. And then what we do, we have like that longer format you see on Match of the Day, where they then pick apart the play, and people want to see that in hockey as well. They want to see top level coaches or players as those pundits analysing the play. That's why people watch Match of the Day, essentially. So like we do need both formats, long and short, essentially.
And we've got kind of the historic host of hockey in Simon Mason. Who would you, so you've thrown out another name there, who else do you think would be good to bring in for that analysis?
Another great question. I love Dan Strange as a commentator. I think he's absolutely brilliant at commentating on the game. I could imagine him being one of the pundits on there for sure. I could definitely see that. Kind of put me on the spot here. We want to see. I reckon we want to try and get some players who used to be in the national squad back in. So, for example, like we do get that. So, like Helen Richardson Walsh coming on to kind of commentate as well. But I think we want to get coaches in as well who have a bit of personality, essentially, and will kind of kickstart a conversation and kind of say, actually, no, that's they should be doing that. So I feel like Carl Stagno for Wimbledon, I would get him on for sure.
Yeah, I think the fine line to tread would be coaches with enough knowledge, but also who are not associated with any of the clubs. Because I mean, for example, I think Quan Brown would be fantastic, but obviously he's tied to a club, so he's not going to want to do any sort of match breakdown and kind of give away any tactics that they've come up with for other opposition. I'm sure he's going through every bit of match footage he can get his hands on to understand how the opposition play. So stepping out of the English league and looking on a bigger spectrum at the FIH, what would you like to see more from the FIH in terms of promotion of stuff like the Pro League, the World Cups, the Europeans, the Pan Ams, all of the continental tournaments?
Yeah. In terms of that kind of level, so I know that FOH actually invested in kind of improving their social media. So they went with a agency called, I think it's called Curveball Digital, which have actually done a good job with illustrations and kind of having these interviews with players, which is really important for promoting these events that people might not normally watch. They've also got the Watch Hockey, isn't it, app? I think it's called. Um, let's just not promote Hockey Fives, even though it's a funny format. I think we just leave that for now. But I feel like FIH are actually doing a pretty good job, but I feel like you kind of need to be promoting it more. If you've got the BT access, I think we need to be putting some more kind of trailers out there, some kind of hype, kind of sizzle trailers behind that sport. That's not just generic to normal sporting kind of montages. We need to be more creative now and kind of step out and go, right, we need to choose an art direction that is actually going to make people go, oh, look, that's a really different sport. And then they look at it and go, actually, I want to watch that. So I feel like what they need to do is now kind of invest within kind of creative and art direction kind of companies to kind of assist them. Sorry, to assist them kind of to keep on doing better, essentially.
I'm guessing you've not seen the latest crop of highlights that the FIH have put on YouTube.
Not for Hockey Fives, but I've watched a couple moments of it, and I genuinely think some of it has been quite laughable, and everyone says it as well. But I feel like as a spectator, I would love to go watch it if I was drinking or just like there with mates. I feel like it would just be funny, but I can't see how it's gonna kind of get like high kind of profile players involved. But I think it's just quite a funny format.
No, so the latest round of the Pro League highlights,
Over Pro League.
they're about 30 seconds in length. They don't even show all of the goals in some of the games. There's no commentary. It's set to like ambient background music. It's really quite odd. If you didn't know the score going in and watched it, you'd think it was like a pre-game hype package video, not match highlights. It's not great.
Yeah, I hadn't watched that at all actually. So I think I might have to go after this. I might have to go have a watch and enjoy that.
Yeah. So especially now with the Pro League in this kind of mini tournament format that they've switched to, whenever there's games on, there's quite a lot of games on. In some cases, simultaneously. I know this was the case, especially with the Olympic qualifiers. I think on one of the days there was 14 games being played. With the congestion of hockey that is kind of causing, no one's going to be able to watch 14 hours of hockey, or 14 plus hours of hockey in a single day. And when it's kind of constant for 6 or 7 days, there's a lot of games and player performances that will be missed. I think the highlight package that we've kind of talked about is super important there. I think possibly more so on the international stage, that kind of match of the day format, I think, would be something that should be leaned on by the FIH to get people's attention.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely feel like it. I know I said do it for like the national governing body, but it's more realistic for FIH to do that across international games. So much more realistic, especially when you've got BT as well. Like you can have a much larger audience to watch that with. But it's also, I feel like at half time for FIH, it goes straight to adverts, which you get at times, but there's no halftime analysis at all, which has been done before. It was at Lee Valley for, I think it was the Champions Trophy at the time. I think it was. They had like a kind of a halftime, like 5 minute kind of chat on that, which was something. But we definitely need to be doing halftime analysis within games for sure, especially at that level.
So Do you think that the current format of international hockey should be adjusted to better support advertising breaks? So we've swapped to 15-minute quarters for international hockey, but the turnaround between the two quarters is only 2 minutes, I believe, and then 5 minutes for half time. Do you think they should extend those breaks? So say 5 minutes between quarters and maybe 15 minutes for half time to allow more of that kind of analysis to be done?
I mean, yeah, if we're going to be basing it off of we want to show that analysis, then yes, for sure. But then obviously when you're thinking about the play as well and just like the rules, like the 2 minute quarter time is obviously there for a reason. But if we're looking at a more large scale level when we want spectatorship, then yes, we need to be having longer kind of quarter breaks and half time to allow for the advertisement break as well as the analysis and chats as well. It has to be in there.
And with that, extending those breaks, what sort of halftime analysis do you think they should focus on? Because I know you talked about the stuff that was done at Lee Valley. I remember, I think it was Simon Mason and Simon Mantell doing a little piece about attacking penalty corners and also defending penalty corners, talking about the different roles. And I found that really interesting watching as a player. Do you think that sort of thing benefits in kind of the tournament format? So it's not just breaking down this specific first half of play, but also gives them other topics that they can talk about.
Yeah, so I definitely feel like it will depend on the actual game you're watching. So like that, like you're going to have some kind of analyst, sorry, there kind of watching the game and working out what they need to talk about as well. So like it will be certain topics, not just we're just going to focus on that one play. We're going to focus on, let's say, defensive breakdowns, and then you show every single defensive breakdown that's happened, what they need to do to stop that. Example, where the players should be. And I feel like it does change for every game, but also for people watching it, it will help develop their game as well. Because like it's all well and good the commentators doing it whilst the game is playing, which I know they have done at times, but you don't really get a focus on that whilst you're watching the game. So like if you want people to really kind of pay attention to it and see the difference, you've got to have that kind of visual language with it as well. So using that kind of like what they use at Sky Sports, of those kind of lines they draw and like and moving players. I feel like we need to bring that into halftime, and then as I said, we need to kind of have those kind of topics to talk about, and which will change for every game. It won't be the same thing every time.
Interesting. So, talking about the coverage that other sports are getting, what would you most like to see lifted from another sport into hockey?
What would I most like to see lifted? I mean, you know what? I would love to see a full crowd every single time. I think that is really important for kind of showing the sport instead of showing some games midweek when everyone's working. Hockey qualifiers, Olympic qualifiers, that was, where there was not really a crowd there watching, but they showed it on BBC, which is brilliant. Don't get me wrong, but the games are played at a time when is working and can't go and watch the game, which I think is ridiculous. If you want to show the game's good and popular, fill in the stadium, fill it in. I feel like that's so important.
So, again, because I know the Pro League in the UK, they are having some midweek games. I think they've got something like 30 games over 17 days or something like that. So they've had to put some midweek games in there. What would you think would be a great idea for them to take forward to try and fill the stadium? Do you think it would be pushing it to evening games? So they're playing kind of a 6 o'clock pushback, 8 o'clock pushback. They're not going to finish until 10, 10:30. or would it be having daytime games, but basically giving the tickets away to local schools and just filling the stadium with kids?
I think it would. I would genuinely think it would have to be a mix because they have done it before where they've given tickets to schools, and I think it's good that you're filling in the stadium, and it's great because they'll obviously make noise as well, and they should hopefully enjoy it. But I feel like you need to give the incentive for the wider audience to come in as well because you can't just give it out to school kids. Essentially, like if that's just your audience, then that's not really going to promote hockey that well, to be honest. So I feel like evening games, you'd have to push it to that as well, make it accessible. The stadium needs to be accessible to people. Let's say, for example, it was in London. It needs to be in a place where people can finish work and go, right, well, all of our kind of team are going to go watch the game, and like the incentive to get in is you get a free jug of beer. You obviously wouldn't get that, but just something to, or even like half price drinks for the first hour, so people would come along for that first hour and then hopefully stay.
Yeah, and I think historically, drinking is a big part of hockey. So getting people in with a free drinks voucher or half price drinks would probably work.
I feel like you'd have a 90% success rate with that.
So branching out outside of the matches and any match analysis, what other type of media do you think that hockey needs to produce more of?
We definitely need to do like out of home billboards. So just like seeing them, or like on roads when you're driving past, on buses. Like, it is expensive to get like that kind of space to kind of promote, but it does need to be done if you want to kind of promote hockey. Essentially, I believe. I feel like that's the main way we should be doing it. Match day programs when you're actually at the event, kind of keep it having something as like a memorabilia. Like I still have these little postcards that Adidas Hockey gave out when it was at Lee Valley for, I think it was Champions Trophy again, like 2015. They had all those kind of like hockey stores kind of like scattered throughout, and they had little kind of memorabilia you could take home with you for free. And it was these little postcards, one for like Nick Catlin, Simon Mantell. I think Richard Mantell was one of them at the time. And I think that's really important, kind of having something that people can kind of connect with and just kind of take home with them and actually want to keep. So it's about providing that kind of, it is kind of media, kind of not, but it is essentially promoting the game as well as like England hockey themselves.
Yeah. So around these big tournaments, and this is purely something that's just popped into my head. So you talked about like the Champions Trophy there. Do you think having promotional materials like just for the tournament, having sticker albums, so you could collect the team stickers, and you could go and collect them from different venues. You could have players giving them out and stuff like that. Do you think that would help promote hockey to a younger audience that would hopefully grow through?
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea, and it obviously works because football has done it. So like I definitely feel like you got, so yeah, that's part of the incentive for getting like the different audiences through. Like you got to have those different levels for different people kind of coming through. But I do think at the same time is that it's, in terms of being like a creative slash designer, it's also our responsibility to do something new as well, not just something that's been done. And I feel like that's what I'm a bit worried that national governing bodies kind of do, is that they kind of do what other sports have done well, which is fine, but we need to be more creative now. And we need to be saying we're a different sport, we're not the same as them. Like we need to be promoting it our way, and we need to find a new way of doing that. I can't say how now, but I feel like that's, in terms of hockey focus, that's what we want to do.
So to sort of tie it back to hockey focus, is there something that you would like to create going forward with Hockey Focus?
I definitely would like. So I've got another job as well, obviously, because I want to be able to live and be able to live in a house. So like it has been eating up my life for the last 9 months. Like kind of changing to a new job, so Hockey Focus kind of had to take the side for a bit, which was it was actually a bit sad. I was like I wanted to do work on it, but I just didn't feel like I had the time to. So it's nice to kind of come back to it and kind of have a drive to kind of take it somewhere. And I do want to take it somewhere for sure, not just social media. I feel like that's going to be our main platform, but I do want to kind of create campaigns that will promote the sport in other ways as well. I want to be able to kind of be almost like a creative agency to kind of promote hockey clubs, help hockey clubs. For example, I feel like Cricket District have done quite well. I used to work with one of the content creators, and I think he's one of the co-owners of Cricket District, and they've done really well for kind of being a page that's where people are going to for the original cricket content. But they now also provide their services to help promote events as well. So they just promoted the South Africa T20 that's just happened. I think that just happened, or it's happening now. And I feel like that's where I could see Hockey Focus going to, kind of growing our team. And we've got great relationships with different photographers, and it's just trying to get more of those contacts on board, and then hopefully be able to kind of get money off of it. Not saying I would want to personally earn money from it. I just want to be able to pay the people who we're using to help promote the event. I would say that we're a not-for-profit organization, especially now. But if we want to promote events, we need to pay the people who are helping do it. So photographers, videographers, video editors, all of that. I feel like that's hugely important to all of this. And that's where I see Hockey Focus kind of growing as a page, but potentially as an agency as well.
No, that's really interesting. So one final question. Is there someone that you'd really like to work with Hockey Focus who you've not had the opportunity to work with up until now?
Oh, wow. There's definitely a few. I think I would love to collaborate with like Hertzberger TV, Jeroen Hertzberger. If you're watching this, mate, please let's have a collab. I'll come over to you. But to be honest, I want to work with as many kind of top level players as possible and clubs, but also like I think the dream obviously would be to kind of work with the FIH to help promote events. That would be like an absolute dream for me, and just kind of be the agency that helps promote their events. I think that is the top goal for sure.
So thank you very much for your time, Josh. Look forward to what you have coming up, especially around the finals weekend.
Awesome. Cheers, Fraser.
Okay, I'll stop the recording. Thank you for watching. Again, if you could like and subscribe to this channel, it does really help. Leave a comment saying who you'd like to see appear on Brum Pitch in future, and I'll see what I can do to get people on.